Hello, everybody. I keep getting a lot of questions from people at the moment, lately, now that we're in pandemic season. A lot of people are sending questions basically saying, what can we do? Hey, Jen. And so this video, is to address the question of what can we do? Really, I could just point you all to any of my past videos because it's going to be the same thing that I've been saying for like 10 years now. But the difference is that the time that we live in with pandemics and shutdowns and vaccines and microchips and Bill Gates and this and that and actually has given us a kind of what's the word, a launch pad. It's almost like a springboard. The work that is always the answer to the question, what can we do? No matter what the circumstances, that work in these days, in these circumstances, in this situation, that work is quicker and easier by far. The temptation, of course, is to do the opposite. The temptation is to get sucked out into the external and to focus on the news and social media and who's wrong and who's right and what's going on, and trying to find answers up here or on the screen. That's the temptation, and it's a very difficult temptation to resist, and it's more difficult the more fear you have in your body. The more fear you're carrying, the harder it is going to be to navigate through these times in a way that isn't just about survival. So I guess we'll talk a little bit about how you can deal with the fear and get past that. For those of you that haven't met her, this is Kimber.
Hi.
And together we'll be sharing whatever comes to us to share. It's a little bit hard to talk at the moment because there's a very strong energy. For those of us that are quite sensitive to it, there's a very strong energy coming through at the moment. So forgive us if we're a little bit mumbly. Courtney says good morning from California, Ben and Kimber. Hello, Claudia. And of course, as always, if you have any questions watching this, ask here or in a message. And feel free to hit the likes and the love hearts and to share this video around. I think it could help a lot of people. The first and the most important thing, what can we do? In answer to that question, what can we do? The first and the most important thing, because it's the first and the most important and the last thing, is breathe. 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 The first thing we ever do is breathe. The last thing we are ever going to do is breathe. And in the meantime, we should keep our focus firmly on our breath as much as we possibly can. If you don't know how to breathe properly, and most people don't breathe properly, if you don't know how to breathe properly, then find out. I'm going to share some breathing stuff in this video. We'll start soon. But if it's new to you, then it's an avenue that you must I mean, there is no must, I know, but if you ask me, you must learn to breathe properly. If you're not breathing properly, then your mind will be more foggy than it needs to be. Your emotions will be out of control. Your physical health will be severely depleted to the extent to which you're not breathing properly. And a lot of people breathe very, very badly, very shallowly. So we'll go over a little bit of basic proper breathing in this video. Hey, Yana. So the first thing about breathing properly is that the nose is for breathing. The mouth has various other functions, and sometimes we breathe through the mouth, but most of the time the breathing should be through the nose. Lots of reasons for that, but the hair inside the nostrils act as a filter, and that's reason enough, because when you breathe in through the nose, these hairs remove some toxins from the air, and so the air is cleaner when it comes to the lungs. If you breathe in through the mouth, and it's okay to breathe in through the mouth, when you breathe in through the mouth, you don't get that filter. So most of the time, breathe through the nose. The second thing is to breathe into and out of the belly primarily. You breathe right deep down into the belly, into the hips, into the lower back. You can also then, when the belly is full, breathe deeper, also up into the chest, but first into the belly. When you inhale into the belly, you should feel your belly like a balloon, expanding, swelling. And that's a very good thing. This is how babies breathe. This is the natural way in which the human body is designed to breathe. So eradicate this shallow chest breathing. When you breathe like that, you're breathing like a mouse. You're breathing at about 5% of your lung capacity. When you breathe in the belly, you get plenty of oxygen into the body, and you ground that breath and the energy that comes from the breath down into the core of the body, grounding yourself, centering yourself. Also, when you breathe with the diaphragm in the belly, you're giving a strong massage to the internal organs. The intestines and all of the abdominal organs are being moved around constantly by this abdominal breathing. And that's very good for the organs. It's good for the digestion. It's good for the whole body. You're releasing toxins from the organs in that way. So first of all, most important, breathe through the nose. Second of all, breathe into the belly, deep into the belly. And the third and final thing that is important to remember is that you focus on the exhalation, not the inhale. Exhale. When you focus on a long, deep, slow exhale, like this, then at the end of the exhale, you just relax. And the inhale comes quite effortlessly, spontaneously. You don't waste energy in this way. The exhale is very easy, slow, deep, long. And at the end of the exhale, simply relax your belly. And you'll find it much easier in that way if you struggle to breathe in the belly. One thing I should say that is that if this is difficult for you, if you find that you can't and it's a struggle, then practice it lying down on your back first. And practice it every day until you can do it lying on your back, and then you can do it sitting up. Sounds like there's a dogfight happening outside. So the most important thing is breathe. And this always, no matter what is going on, the breath is the bridge between the mind and the body. And it's the way back into the body. But I know a lot of people are basically panicking at the moment and trying to figure out how to navigate life now and what they're going to do. And so I really want to encourage you that although it seems like our attention is needed externally, it's even more important nowadays to prioritize the inner work. Because the only way that any of us ever can thrive instead of just surviving, the only way any of us can even begin to experience the kind of life that is our potentiality is by understanding the old wisdom as within, so without. Whatever we experience out there is a reflection of what we have inside of us. And it gets a little bit more complicated when you look at collective consciousness and how we are co-creating our reality. But on an individual level, for you, the most important thing is to understand that you cannot change anything on the outside unless you change something internally first. And so now is the time to do that, because many of you have been paying lip service to it. Many of you have been living a kind of a pseudo spiritual life, where this inner world, the spirit, is, almost like a lifestyle choice, but you weren't living it. You weren't living it. And now is the time to live it. Now is the time to walk the talk and to talk the walk. Well, walk the talk first. Now is the time to make the inner world and the work that is necessary to understand the inner world. Now is the time to do it. Because there's a big awakening happening. And you don't want to get left behind. Some people are going on that train and some people aren't. And if you do the work, it's the only way. Comments. Hi, Bima. Jennifer Grace. My first focus, Jesus. My last focus, Jesus. And the breathing and breath in my lungs happens effortlessly. Seek Jesus and he will set you free. Love to all. God bless you. Hi, Domagoy. Hi, Fernanda. It's good to have something or someone that you have faith in. Whether it's Jesus or Buddha or the Tao or whatever. But ultimately, there is always the possibility that you have faith in yourself and understand that everything is one. And that whatever we are is the same everywhere you look, including in the direction of your deity or your guru or your savior. We can save ourselves. And in fact, it's only we who can save ourselves. And when I talk about inner work, when we talk about inner work, that's what we're talking about. The work that is necessary to wake up to the reality that we can save ourselves and we don't need anything to do that. Religion has been for a very long time used as a tool to control us, to misdirect us, to make us forget that we are the ones that can save ourselves, and only we can. Anytime you put your attention on something external in the hope that they can do the work for you, they can protect you, they can save you, they can educate your children for you, they can take care of your health for you, it doesn't work. It doesn't work, because as within, so without. Hello, Shannon. Hello, Jean. Hello, Lisa. Any questions? Do you feel like saying something about the same? Of course. We're running a 12-week course at the moment. We're about 8 weeks into that. And we also run an online community. And both of these avenues are ways in which you can do the work with guidance. This is the first time we've run this awakening. We call it Awakening Bootcamp. And it's a 12-week course. And our intention was that it would give people the vehicle, the opportunity to really have an awakening experience. So we designed it with that in mind. And we're 8 weeks in, and people that are doing it are having Kundalini awakening and going through rebirth process. So it's really been beautiful for us to see that this intention that we had, which is a beautiful intention, is working. And so, yeah, if you are coming to the point where you are ready to commit yourself to doing this work, then those are two very good options for you. And you can find out information on my website. It's very cheap. We're not doing it to make a lot of money. We're doing it because we can. And yeah.
We don't have the launch date for the second 12-week course yet, but we will soon. So just stay tuned.
Yeah, it'll be in about a month's time, ish. Courtney, I feel very much awakened in this time. It's partly because so much of the unnecessary diversions in my life have fallen away. Great. I'm also very grateful for your guidance in this time. It's really shaped my viewpoint, rooted in peace and positivity and power over fear. Hello, Jean Petit. So, for those of you that are doing the inner work, but are also afraid of what's going on externally, what can we say?
It's a wonderful opportunity to overcome fear. There have been, a lot of days recently where I've had a lot of fear releasing, feeling, just almost like the cells of my body were literally vibrating the energy of fear out of them. And I just sat and let it happen, and sat and let it happen, and sat and let it happen. That's what we can choose to do, is to release it.
And really, that's when you combine that with breathing, when you sit and you breathe deeply and you relax your body and you allow what is in there in the form of negative stuff, shadows, difficult emotions, painful energies like fear, when you simply breathe and observe it, when you bring your attention to it, the light of your attention dissipates those so-called shadows. This is the fastest way to do it, and it's especially fast in these times because the world is changing in a very positive way. And all of the negative changes that we see happening in terms of sickness and death, government overreach, tyranny and fascism, and all of the things that we recognize happening externally in a very negative way, those things are actually a reaction. They are reactionary. They are secondary. They are reactions by the, let's just call them the powers that be, the so-called powers that be, are reacting to this wave of energy that is coming through us at the moment that is transforming humanity. And another thing that is very useful to do is to deprogram yourself from this programming that we have been subjected to, especially in the last, 50 years or something, about being compassionate, about being nice, about worrying about people's feelings. We need to toughen up a little bit, life is not, especially in 2020 and in recent past, life is not a picnic. It's supposed to be challenging. It includes death and disease and sickness and so on. And of course this is not to say that we're cold-hearted about it. Suffering is suffering, and wherever possible, I will always do everything I can to avert suffering. But the point is that we cannot. Usually, where there is suffering, there is nothing that we can do about it. What we can do is something about our own suffering, and we can remove ourselves from that equation. One of the reasons why there is a huge amount of suffering on the planet, and there will be more to come soon, is because as within, so without, the mass of humanity are living in fear. If you live in fear, you attract something to make you afraid, i.e. suffering. So there is a kind of mimetic, what would you call it, a meme in the collective consciousness that says that if another human being is suffering, or if somebody's suffering, we must suffer too. We must be so compassionate that it's almost like we all have to come down to the level of the lowest common denominator. This is absolutely the opposite of how we should be living. We should be living for our freedom. We should be living for our power. We should be living towards love and wisdom. And there is suffering. And it's completely out of proportion at the moment. So that if you buy into this idea that is sold to us in so many ways, for example, one of the ways, little way, is this new Facebook emoji. If you buy into that, then it pulls you down and prevents you from really spreading your wings. It's a pleasure, Elisa. Hey, Lubick. Hey, Julie. In a wolf pack, in the wild, when one wolf is sick or dying, that one wolf will fuck off. It'll go off on its own into the wild and die an honorable, dignified death in order to not pull down the rest of the pack, because the wolves know that the pack is only as strong as the weakest member of the pack. And we've been sold this idea that, if somebody in our society, even if they're on the other side of the world and we've never fucking met them, dies or gets sick, we have to all kind of wring our hands and make sympathetic noises. And when you understand that we are responsible for what we experience in this life, when you understand that each of us individually is responsible for our experience and only responsible for our own experience, then this kind of cooing and melodramatic sympathy and compassion makes no sense, other than as a mechanism with which to, another mechanism with which to take up away our power from us. It's written in the Bible, let the dead bury the dead, and go ye proclaim the kingdom of God, the kingdom of heaven. In other words, don't come down to the level of death, suffering, sickness. That's not where you want to be. That's not where you thrive in life. Aim high.
And don't let that be your excuse not to pursue the kingdom of heaven.
And where is the kingdom of heaven? Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all else shall be added unto you. Where is the kingdom of heaven? Within. So is written. Hello, Charlotte. Hey, Dario. Hey, Carrie. So just taking that thought a little bit further, we are responsible for our experience, and what we experience in this life is a reflection of what we are holding within us. So it's good to ask yourself the question, what do you want? What would you like to experience? Imagine that this is all just a dream. And imagine that you wake up in the dream. When you wake up sometimes in a dream, you have a lucid dream. And then you say to yourself, oh, wow, I'm dreaming. I can do anything I want. Maybe I can fly, ride a sports car. I don't know. I like to fly in my dreams if I get lucid. Whatever it is that you like to do in your dreams, well, just pretend that this is just a dream. And you can do anything you want. You can experience, you can feel, you can make this dream, you can turn it into any kind of experience that you want. Take some time and really, really think deeply about what it is that would make you most fulfilled. What would give you the most sense of fulfillment and satisfaction? Because, how does the song go? If you ain't got a dream, how are you going to have a dream come true? Hey, Marina. Hey, Emily. So I'm just going to recap a little bit. A lot of people have been asking us, what can we do? And I shared a little bit earlier in the video about breathing and the importance of breathing. It's the most important thing in the world at the moment. It's the most important thing in the world always. So if you're not sure that you're breathing properly, then make that your absolute priority. And what else were we saying? Talking about as within, so without. Talking about how the temptation in these times is to focus all of our attention out there, watching the news, following the social media, trying to find out what's going on, what's the truth, arguing with people who don't agree with us, trying to find someone to blame. And the second thing we have to do is we have to bring our attention back in. All we have to pay is attention. We pay with our attention, and it's your life force. It's your time. It's the real currency of this life. As within, so without. If you're focusing on everything out there that you don't like, if you're focusing on death and disease and pandemic and fear and masks, and then you're caught in a loop. And most people alive at the moment seem to be caught in a very, very dysfunctional loop where they're feeling fear inside, they're looking outside, seeing more fear, and they're just caught like a mouse in a wheel, fear compounding upon more fear. So the only way to turn that around is to bring your attention back internally and to see what is going on inside of you that is creating this outside of you. And as Kimber was saying a little while ago, it's mostly about fear. Fear is what keeps us stuck. Fear is what enslaves us. And I watched a video, we were watching a video a little bit earlier. These three guys, two are fairly prominent yoga teachers, and one's a very well-known writer, a real intellectual. And it's very obvious. Well, to me it is anyway, to us. We see it very clearly these days. Who's in fear? Who's part of the problem? Because that's the problem. Fear is the problem. Forget about virus, forget about government, forget about this, forget about that. Fear is the problem. And the truth is that this is a dream. Life is a dream. We are dreaming our life, constantly dreaming it into reality. And it can be a beautiful dream. It can be such a beautiful dream. Fear is the lens through which our dream becomes a nightmare. And there are a number of things, a few things that most of us are deeply afraid of. The two big ones are death and insanity. And most human beings alive today are riddled with fear. But we're so afraid that we don't know it. Because we're so afraid, and we've been so afraid for so long, that it's just the state that we're in. And actually what's happening is that most people are walking around in a bubble of fear. And all they see is the reflection of the inside of the bubble back to them. They feel fear, they see fear. They feel fear, they see fear. And when I say most people, I really mean the vast majority of people. And religion and spirituality on the whole are no good. You may have had a spiritual practice, you may have been doing yoga, you may have been meditating, you may be into Buddhism, you may be into all kinds of things, and suddenly be feeling like it's not fucking working for me. Because you're still in the grip of fear. And so what I would say to you, if that's the case, is well, what can I say apart from come and work with us?
We work on this stuff every week in our online community.
Yeah, I'm always a little uncomfortable to say, hey, I recommend come work with us, because it sounds like we're doing this just for an advertisement. But
if you can't see how to work on it on your own, though, you need to find somebody who can show you, if you have the desire to work on it. So whether it's us or somebody else who's focused on this, focused on, the facts of life and what's true and what we're experiencing in the body, with the body.
It's about facing the truth. It's about getting really real and going beyond, ideas and opinions and worldviews and beliefs and traditions and old ways, and taking back your own power for yourself. And nobody can do that for you. nobody can do it for you. Anybody says that they can do it for you is lying.
No one can teach you, tell you, show you anything. The understanding comes from within. It's an internal realization, remembering, and understanding.
Elisa says, in Dante's Inferno, from within the depths of hell, the stars above symbolize that which is God and hope. Should our hope be internalized first? How do we share hope for tomorrow? That's a great question. Well, heaven and hell and everything in between is right here and right now. And you can tune in to heaven, like a little radio station, you know, turn the dial. Ah, I'm in heaven. Or you can tune your frequency in a different way. And it very much does depend, like we were saying earlier, on how you pay attention and what you pay attention to. I don't know about any of you, but I have been in hell, in this body, in this lifetime. Addicted, depressed, anxious, riddled with fear, self-doubt, chaos, poverty, you know. Poverty part is relative, I admit. But, you know, when you can't pay the rent, I've experienced all kinds of abuse. Most of my childhood was basically suffering. So I feel like I kind of, you know, I know hell fairly well. And it isn't a place where you're being turned on a spit by somebody else on a fire for eternity. It's a place internally where you are roasting yourself because you haven't chosen to look in a different direction yet. Perhaps you didn't know that you could choose, but it was self-inflicted. And when you're in that moment, it seems like an eternity. A moment in that awful suffering stretches on and on forever, and there is no hope. You cannot see a way out of it. And I've been in heaven. And I'm very clear now that these are states of awareness that are always available and always present. All there is consciousness. All there is consciousness. And to look outside for anything, whether it's the stars symbolizing that which is God and hope, whatever it is that you're looking outside for, it ain't there. You might find it out there because the universe works like that. Sometimes it gives you the reflection that you're looking for to teach you, perhaps by then taking it away, that it ain't there. It's inside. And, you know, since before we were born, for thousands of years now, our attention has been hijacked in a million different ways, especially through television and media. And so we are trained, we're very well trained. We're professionals at looking out there, at projecting, at handing over our power, at not taking responsibility, at avoiding going inside. And that all of this work that we're talking about, the inner work, is basically about reversing that process, bringing our attention back inside, figuring out for ourselves what's actually going on here. Because it isn't what we've been told at all. Lisa says, can fear hide hope? Yeah, fear hides everything. Everything. Fear is like a big blanket that just gets thrown over you. And when you're in fear, you cannot see clearly, think clearly, or hope hide fear. I ask so my heart and mind stay free from fear. There will always be questions, you know, when there is fear, because what fear does is it gets us living in our heads. In our heads, there are endless questions. And the answer that we're looking for is not to be found up here, it's to be found in the body. So really, if at the moment, this is very sincere advice now, if you're feeling stuck, and I think most people are, then you need to change the way you are doing things. You know, the situation is not going to change by using the same consciousness with which the situation was created. You have to change things. You have to do something differently. And what I advise you is to find somebody that you trust that can help you work through your internal world, your thoughts, your feelings, your energies, your instincts, your trauma, your memories, and reorder it, because we're riddled with fear. It is like it's like a doll, you know, a rag doll that is just, it's got pins through it, hundreds of pins going from one direction to the other. A rag doll with pins, front, back, left, right, up, down, going all the way through it. And each pin is another fear. And this is the cage. It is an energetic prison because these pins are not made of metal. They're made of energy. And this is where the average human is today.
And we call it ourself. It's tricky. It's actually our personality that's made of layers and layers and layers of fear.
Yeah, we think that this is who we are. And it's not who we are at all. It has nothing really to do with us. It's an energetic structure that has been put over us, so to speak. 1818. And you need help unraveling it. You can do it on your own, but it takes longer. And a lot longer. It took me 20, 30 years. And I wasn't completely alone. Mostly I was. It takes decades and decades and decades if you do it on your own. When you have someone guiding you that has already been through the process. So my number one advice, change things up. Don't let your spirituality and your healing path any longer be something that you're just paying lip service to, where you spend 10 hours a day worrying about money and working for money and living a materialistic life, focusing out there. Instead, prioritize your inner world. Prioritize the inner work. That is the only way, the only way that can change things for us individually and as a collective in the world out there. Janet says, yes, ACIM, that's A Course in Miracles, says this is an illusion. Return to love. Yeah, but the thing is, you see that, you know, the word love, who really knows? Who can really put their hand up and say, I know what love is? Very few people. Very few people. The vast majority of humans today are stuck in the first chakra with big blockages in the second and third. And to know love, you have to heal the first chakra, you have to heal the second chakra, you have to heal the third chakra, that's safety, freedom, and power. And when you know your power, then you have to rise up into the heart. And from there, you can have an understanding, a direct experience of what love really is. And yes, we have to return to love, but for most people, it's an abstract concept. And this is why doing the work is so important. It's too easy to say, let's return to love. Most people say that and nothing happens. There's no empowerment. There's no real personal freedom. And deep down, we don't feel safe. We're afraid. And these are the stepping stones, the fundamental building blocks of this path. Hey, Nicola, Mateus, Jessica, Candida, Terry. Hello, everybody. Anything more to say? I think we've done it. So,
yeah, it's not just a shift in idea, belief, perspective. the process of coming out of this fear-based state is an intentional stripping away of all of these false beliefs and layers of fear, and it doesn't feel good, and it's challenging, and it's painful. So there's no way out besides to do that. We can't just decide to be loving, because then we're just putting a layer of love and a nice face on top of all of the fear that's already in. That's why work is required.
And the work is painful.
Mm-hmm.
And initially, the fruits of the work, the results of the work are painful, because in order to excavate this stuff, in order to strip away layer and layer of fear and stagnant emotion and ego, this is a painful, painful process. It's not, I'm not selling it very well, but there is no way to sell it.
It's the truth, though.
And anybody that's selling it, yeah, it's the truth. Anybody that's selling it nice, you know, like return to love.
They're telling you a story.
That's, you know, they're telling you a story. And you've probably tried all those things. I know I did. I became a yoga teacher. I did Reiki. I did this. I did that. I thought I was very spiritual. I experienced enlightenment states. I had mystical experiences. And it didn't get me anywhere. It didn't get me anywhere. Why? Because I was riddled with fear, riddled with it. And in order to unriddle yourself, you have to pull out one by one those pins. And it hurts a little bit. But the relief that comes after the pain is extraordinary, immense. And there's no turning back, because once you start pulling those pins out, it becomes almost addictive, because you feel better and better and better and better. You become more and more secure in yourself, less needy, less dependent, less afraid. Then you start to feel freedom as the second chakra activates. Freedom to be yourself. And this is the ultimate liberation. This is what we really want. Freedom to do, say, and be however you want, whenever you want, wherever you want. And then comes power. Because when you know that you're safe, when you feel free within yourself to be who you are, that's a very powerful thing. And only after that, really, can we begin to get a true experiential understanding of what love really is. Until then, we're really just navel gazing a little bit. So I'll say it one more time, third time lucky. Now is the time to walk the talk. There is nothing to lose. There is nothing to lose. Because in case you hadn't noticed, this whole batshit crazy pandemic circus business is just kind of gathering pace. And as humanity awakens, and to the extent that humanity awakens, things will change for us individually and collectively. And those are two different things. So, hey Didi, hello Heather. Elisa says, what is enemy? Janet, how long does it take using your work to remove fear? I'll just quickly say something and then you can answer. The 12-week course that we're doing is designed, well, I say we're doing it. We're coming towards the end of one, and we may start another in about a month. But in that course, we bring a lot of the tools that we use in the community. So people are having big awakenings on that course. But it depends what you put into it. You know, the people on that course that are really investing themselves and sort of faithful to the spirit of the course are having massive results after 8 weeks. What would you say?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a process that a timestamp can be put on. and you will get out of it how much you put in, just like anything else in life. But it's different for everyone. How long it takes is kind of irrelevant. We only always have now and where we are. So there's no time to waste, and there's no point worrying about how long things are going to take. Once you understand also, a part of it is just about kind of gaining an understanding of the process. That doesn't take very long. Once we start applying and learning and stripping away these layers and facing ourselves and understand what's happening, then there's an acceptance that's reached. There was with me. I think there is with a lot of people. And we then kind of understand internally how to keep ourselves moving forward. And how much we have to rid ourselves of fear is different from everyone, for every individual person. So time length varies, but it doesn't take very long to get a grasp on what it is that you're doing internally. And that is empowering and freeing as well.
Yeah, it takes as long as it takes.
Mm-hmm.
And in answer to Elisa's question, what is enemy? You are. You are your enemy. You are your friend. You are your savior. You are your teacher. There is nothing else. And in truth, we just keep on attracting things and people and circumstances and situations into our life to show us that. If you really want to know who the enemy is, look within. Because you will spend your whole life, and it will be a wasted life, looking out there. And you'll find plenty of enemies, political enemies, this enemy, that enemy. Plenty of people to point your finger at. Plenty. You can come back 1,000 times and spend all those lifetimes pointing your finger, non-stop, easy. When you finally turn the finger this way and you look within and you see that your own fear, your own unexpressed emotion, your own ego were the cause of all of your problems, then in about 8 to 10 weeks, if you're lucky, you might turn the whole thing around. Especially these days, to go back to the question of how long does it take? These days, it's super quick. What took me years, few years ago, these days we're doing like in a day, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like in a day, we're having incredibly quick stuff happening. Okay. I think we're going to wrap it up. Lots of love.
Don't forget to breathe deeply. Anytime you're feeling afraid, the brain can't think right when we're in fear and panic state. So if you do nothing else, make that your priority for now.
Lots of love. See you soon.